Welcome back. Well, every child deserves a safe place to stay, and here with me today is Bryn Moore and Michelle Hughes. Thank you so much for joining me today. Let's talk a little bit about Project Playground. Tell me a little bit about it.
Sure. Project Playground came out of the necessity for our shelter that needs a new playground to be installed, and the playground needs to be available for all ages since we handle infants to 18 years old.
Gotcha. And it's part of the Life Crisis. It will be on the Life Crisis Center.
It is on the Life Crisis. It's in the Life Crisis Center shelter. Gotcha. And it's for the children who come with their mothers who are victims of domestic violence.
And you just touched on a little bit, but for those who don't know what the Life Crisis Center is, could you tell me
Life Crisis Center is a regional crisis center that serves victims of domestic violence, rape, child abuse, and human trafficking.
Wow. And tell us a little bit about your mission there.
Our mission is crisis intervention and violence prevention. How
did you two get involved in this?
I've done it for 30 years.
But how did you get involved in it?
Well, I think that in order for a community to be said to be have a good quality of life, we have to ensure the quality of life for everyone in it.
Right.
And that means especially for people who can't advocate for themselves, like women who are victims of domestic violence and rape victims, and especially for children. Most of the children we serve are either witness to domestic violence or are victims of child sex abuse. And those children are the least able to advocate for themselves.
And that's why it's the most important that we can give them the opportunity to be a kid. And that's why this Project Playground is so important, because it does give them that opportunity, along with the Kid Fund, which is what we have started. And we're doing that to commemorate our 35th year of service, and that the acronym actually means Kids, Inquiring, Discovering, and Developing. And so the monies raised for the Kid Fund will go directly towards children that have specific needs.
Oh, okay.
For instance, if a child is with us in our shelter, they're not having a normal life like most children would have, right. Because the shelter is not a normal life for a child. And we try to make things as normal as possible by making sure that they have the things that they might have if they were still in their homes. Soccer team practice,
right.
And piano lessons if that's what they had. Sometimes children are physically injured in a domestic dispute, and they may need to have some medical treatment, or they may need medication. In some counties, they need to have a uniform to go to school, and if they're in our shelter, we need to provide that for them. One of the things that our therapists are very clear about is when a child has to testify against someone who has sexually abused them, they need to have clothes to wear to court. So those are the kinds of things that, we don't think about because we assume that everyone has them. The Rotary does the backpack project every year, and we get backpacks for the children in our shelter. So, all of those things are sort of tied together, right. And it makes the quality of life in our community, it makes it a better place to live.
Right. How long does this Project Playground, how long have you been working on it? How long does it take to do something like that?
Sure. It initiated in the spring. We realized that parts of our playground were not up to code, and some parts were starting to get a little rusty. And so we did some investigative, and we kind of looked around, and we had a major sponsor, Ben Cam, offered a significant portion of what we needed for the playground. And then we've had some other single contributions come in too. So we're almost at where we need to be. Our goal is to have the playground installed by the end of the summer. So it's one of those really wonderful opportunities that people can kind of understand and wrap themselves around, and that's why the Kid Fund is so important at this point, because it gives us a chance to be proactive. So we have the money set aside already, so when a child comes in, we don't have to find, a need to meet what they need. So from that's why we want to set aside this money, so that way when they come in, we can just give them what they need immediately.
How can the community get involved with you and help?
Well, they can certainly write a check. we are still yes, we're still about $1,000 short in our playground fund for making the playground meet the national specifications for playgrounds. Nina DiCarlo East from Pohanka Automotive Group has been wonderful. She really has raised most of the money for us.
Wow.
But we still are, as I say, about $1,000 short of making certain that we have what the federal government says are the minimum standards for a playground. We have also some needs for our children's therapy garden. Kids don't like to be in a room, you know, with a therapist. They'd rather be someplace safe outside. And so we have, thanks in large part to the Best Buy Women's Leadership Group, and we have managed to put together a beautiful children's therapy garden. But we always need pieces to make certain that we're offering national best practices in our therapy. And you know, there are things like we just put in a sandbox. So those things are important.
Right.
And right now, that's what we're working on, is our kids group.
And they can write the checks out to the Life
Crisis Center, yes.
Or LifeCrisisCenter.org.
LifeCrisisCenter.org. Well, that is what you guys are doing is wonderful. So write those checks, and thanks so much for joining us on Good Things Delmarva. We'll see you next week.